In Canada, one woman is killed in a violent act every other day. The spike in domestic violence that began during the pandemic is still on the rise. Numbers in Canada have leapt by 27% since 2019, and in Israel, the situation is just as critical, with 16 Israeli women already murdered this year. True to its mission, CHW is stepping up to support emergency services in Canada and Israel at this critical time. Help CHW empower victims of domestic violence by supporting the 27-hour SOS crowdfunding campaign. From August 22nd to 23rd, every dollar will be quadrupled when you donate online at chwsos.ca.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We're the Menschwarmers, your bi-weekly look at the world of Jews and sports. I'm Jamie. I'm here with my friend Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty darn good.
Yeah.
We are recording this on it is the dog days of summer.
Oh yeah.
We've entered August. It's August is
MLB trade
not
deadline
the
time.
best month. Yes, that's right. Which is it a DAR 2 right now? I think we're in a DAR 2.
From a sports perspective, it's really like this period between the end of the tennis Grand Slams and golf majors until like football starts. If you're a real sicko and watch preseason football, like fine, but like otherwise it's just like August doesn't have much going on. There's no TV. There's a reason why people go away. People go away for vacations this time of year. But we are still bringing the world the important stuff and information news from the world of Jews and sports.
You're absolutely right. And it was the Ashes this week.
It was the Ashes. Okay.
It was the Ashes.
Great.
Sport, cricket. The Ashes currently, I don't believe, have any Jews. We've got some UK listeners.
It's true. It's the Women's World Cup as well, which also doesn't have any Jewish participants this year. I mean, there's plenty of Jewish women who have been at the highest levels of soccer, but no Jews in the World Cup this time around. We should say off the top that we do have an exciting interview coming up with Josh Sokol of Montreal, who is the recent NASPA Scrabble championship. He won the North American Scrabble championship just last week in Las Vegas, and it was really nice to talk to him about sort of his career in Scrabble and focusing on a more cottagey of the sports.
Something he explained to us, and we sort of get into it a little bit. There's a lot of Jews in Scrabble.
Yeah.
In our last episode, we sort of isolated the poker stars of Judaism
right.
That were few and far between. Stu Unger and then some guys nobody has heard of. But it feels like in the Scrabble world, it's really going from the Abramsons to the Zelikovitzes. It is really a mishpucha of Scrabble players.
Yeah, that's right. And the guy who invented Scrabble, whose name was Alfred Butts, I believe.
Oh boy,
I believe was Jewish, but maybe not. I that's
like a Butts. Butts.
Yeah, Butts is not the most Jewish last name, I guess. But anyway,
but his middle name was Mosher, and he's from Poughkeepsie. So I think we've got some hints there.
But Josh Sokol mentioned that the person who won the competing Scrabble championship that uses the other dictionary, and real Scrabble heads will know that there's competing dictionaries in the Scrabble world. But he is also Jewish. He's a Jewish Australian guy, I believe, by the name of David Eldar. So there's lots of Jews in Scrabble. I don't know if I know all the reasons. It's a less physical sport, but definitely an interesting one. And it was interesting to talk to Josh about. I know you and I have gone back and forth on some Scrabble games in our history. Some Menschwarmers origin stories here of late night Scrabble games.
There's a lot of them. And Scrabble is, I think all of us, there's a lot of, some people, can play Scrabble all the time. Other folks, it's not quite the lifestyle it is for Josh. But I think, most Jews can say that Scrabble is a part of their life.
Yeah.
It is I should say, just to steal a couple of words, it's a quixotic game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there you go. I think that could be worth 60, 65 points without any bonuses on that one. But the Jews have a long history in Scrabble, and it's exciting to talk to Josh about it as we sort of watch the baseball season drone on.
Yeah. Before we get to that, just a few news type items to talk about. I wanted to mention that someone we've talked about before on this podcast, Alina Svitolina, the Ukrainian tennis player, who recently had some real success making it all the way to the semifinals of Wimbledon in the United Kingdom. She has been of loose Jewish background. Like, that's something we've talked about before. We've talked about her. Other people have talked about it as well. And it's always been this sort of like, she is rumored to have some Jewish background. I can say that I wasn't instrumental, but I was talking to former guest and friend of the pod, Lewis Keane of JTA, who Ford, who sort of dug into it, and I think actually ended up contacting Alina's brother and finding out that their grandmother is Jewish. One of their grandmothers is Jewish, still residing in Odessa, and he wrote the article on it that can be used as a sort of definitive source instead of circular sourcing on Wikipedia about rumored to. So that's exciting. I don't know that she identifies.
Exciting.
I don't know if she identifies necessarily, but I did dig up an interview she gave where she talked about how Israel had reached out at an earlier stage in her career about coming over there to play. Ultimately, it wasn't what she decided to do, but interesting nonetheless. And her husband, tennis player Gael Monfils, I believe, just announced his retirement as well. So congratulations to the...
Well, they've got a nice little family going. Now we move on in a news update from someone we've talked about on the podcast, Alina Svitolina, to someone we've talked to on this podcast, which is recently named International League Player of the Week, Spencer Horwitz.
Yeah.
He had his major league debut recently. There wasn't room for him on the team right now, sent back down. As of, now he is still a Blue Jay. Looks like he will stay there throughout the trade deadline, which is exciting for us being from Toronto and, admirers and appreciators of him as a dude, as well as a player. But he was recently named the best player of the week in the International League, the minor league that the Buffalo Bisons play in. So big muzzle tough to Spencer on that one.
Yeah, that's great. I think it remains to be seen whether he'll make it back up at the club if they need some help. Rosters don't expand in the same way in September that they used to.
Not anymore. I think it's only 2 more players.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but he's still on the 40-man.
Yeah, it used to be that you could really just have like all your guys up in September for the last push, or just to give them some seasoning and experience. But I think now it's just you get 1 or 2 extra guys and that's it. So we'll see if he's someone who they need. If there's any injuries, he can fill in around the diamond and see how he does. I wanted to shout out as well that I saw that Jewish Canadian Aston Martin driver Lance Stroll had a 9th place finish at the recent Belgian GP. This has been a sort of boring year for racing, as I understand it. I'm not the biggest F1 devotee.
It has not been that exciting.
Yeah,
I will be honest.
That Max Verstappen has sort of run away with it, but great to see Lance, have another points, and he is in the top 10 now for the season. So
yeah, he'll finish with his best season of his career for sure. He's had a couple of podiums before. He's had a couple of podiums before, but this will be the best season of his career, sort of on the whole.
Yeah, so hopefully when the season's over in October, November, hopefully we can find some time to talk with him if he's able to make it back to Montreal. And I think for those guys, there's so much like training and focus that goes into their athleticism that it's like I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if it's just like, no, I just go sleep in a hyperbaric chamber for 4 months and wake up and they strap me into a race car. I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not. They don't have. I think you're right. I don't think they have a lot of free time.
Yeah. But now let's move on to our interview with Montreal's own Josh Sokol. We're joined tonight by Josh Sokol. Josh is the recent winner of the NASPA Scrabble Players Championship. Josh, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're good. Josh, what is the NASPA Scrabble Players Championship? Can you tell us about your recent victory?
A big W. Scrabble joke.
Until recently, it was pretty much unequivocally the biggest Scrabble tournament in North America, and winning it was just like winning the World Series, basically.
Well, congratulations, we should say. $10,000 you won.
Yeah, but then I won it, and now it's just like, it's just like a home game, basically.
Right. It's just another tournament.
But yeah, thanks.
Where was the tournament held? It was in Las Vegas. Is it in a casino? Is it in a convention center?
Yeah, it was in the Westgate.
So if your first question immediately on this, if you're playing Scrabble in Vegas, what is the like money games between two pros like? Are there money games?
There could be. There wasn't. Yeah, there wasn't. It's unfortunate. I feel like COVID has like sort of washed away a lot of like after hours play. There used to be a big scene of just like after hours variants of Scrabble and other games, like people play chess, whatever, a bunch of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, nowadays the only like cash games people play is like very rarely you'll play some blitz Scrabble for money.
And
I'm down. I'm always down, but yeah.
So what's the format like at the NASPA tournament? Is it just playing all day and then like do you advance with high scores, or is it best record? How does that go?
Yeah, it's so it's 9 to 6 every day. You play 7 games. So there's a lunch break in between. You play 1-on-1, and yeah, each game counts as a win or a loss, or maybe a tie. Ties are really unlikely, but yeah,
Right.
The way that it's rated is, if you have the most wins, you're in first place, and if you're tied with the amount of wins as someone else, then the entire score differential between all of your games is counted as a tiebreaker.
Okay. And then it goes on to a playoff system of some sort?
Yeah, so for the last... They change it all the time, but last year and this year, there was a finals format. I mean, purists prefer it to just be like a straight thing, because let's say I finished... Well, this is exactly what happened. I finished 4 games ahead of second place, and even if in the finals I had lost all 3 games in a best of 5, I still would have had more wins as the second place guy at the end. So the purists are like, finals, what is this? But it's way more exciting now.
Yeah.
So it was 28 games and then a best of 5.
If you're telling me that Scrabble players argue about the minutia of the rules of this tournament, then I refuse to believe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit, now we have the tournament, about you. Where are you from? Tell us. We believe, we talked earlier, you are Jewish. That's part of the show. What was your Jewish upbringing like, vis-a-vis or without Scrabble?
Yeah, I'm from Brooklyn. I moved to Montreal when I was 10. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we basically just played games. And I feel like word games are somewhat like Jewish leaning of a... of a thing.
Scrabble for sure. I think it has always had a Jewish...
Were you a games family?
But Scrabble's my parents' favorite game. It became my favorite game. I've only played 1 game in Hebrew. I made 1 word, and then I stopped playing.
Do you play in French? That's all. That was a later on question. Being a Montrealer now.
Yeah, when I lived at home, I played in French with my dad. I've played online as well. It's a different game though. I prefer the English version of the game, and there's a specific reason why. I don't need to get into it, but it's
get into it. What's the reason why? What is it about the English game that is interesting? Or the most compelling?
I think there's just a lot more like strategy and like in between tactics going on. In French, there aren't very many short words and a ton of long words, because all the words are verb endings. Basically all the words are, because there's like so many conjugations. So because of that, like it's really, there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot more like variance. There's a lot more luck in the French game, and it's less about like your strategic mastery of the game and more about like just knowing words. And I've never been very good. I mean, I'm obviously really good at knowing words, but that's never been my forte.
Well, so I wanted to ask about that, because I think of myself as a relatively decent Scrabble player. I would say certainly I know all the 2-letter words, the Q words, the J's, the X's, things like that. But I don't know all the 3s, and I certainly don't know anything beyond that. As a pro, as someone who's hitting the highest level, do you have the Scrabble dictionary memorized? Do you have every word at your command?
I should. I don't. I should. The best of the best rarely make mistakes. I'm getting there. I've put a lot of work in for me, but yeah, it's never been my forte. I did make a couple of mistakes. I usually make maybe one word knowledge mistake a game on average. But yeah, it's pretty up there. Like I tend
does
to
that mean
get into.
either?
Go ahead.
When you say word knowledge mistakes, does that mean either playing an invalid word or failing to call out somebody else's invalid word?
It could
Is
be that, or
where
it
the
could
mistake
just
is made?
be like not knowing a word, like a word's validity for sure, and so not playing it, or yeah,
I've
bunch
Right.
of different
I've
stuff like
read that
that.
there reaches a certain level of Scrabble play where a little bit, and maybe this is part of the Jewish, aspect of it, is a little bit becomes a bit of a confidence game. Is saying like, oh, I know this is a word, or is that person trying to pull one over on me? There's a lot of sort of mental back and forth where you're daring each other to call each other out, which is, I find, the type of envelope pushing that we as a people are very good at.
Yeah, there is in North American play there is a large bluffing aspect because the price to try and call someone's word off is a turn, and a turn is worth a
Right.
lot of points. So yeah, it's there is some bluffing involved, and it's sort of like poker in that regard. But I would say at the highest levels, it's more like chess.
Right. Josh, we should say that to our audience that you also stream Scrabble play sometimes on Twitch.
Mhm.
Your handle's Axe or typo. Does that mean anything? Does that have any
No,
significance? Just
I
the handle.
needed a new like
Sure.
my old email address was Scrabble _ WWE,
So
and I've
you've abandoned your
since abandoned the
WWE fandom.
WWE. I needed to find something to call myself, so I just tried to type something pseudo random on a
I
keyboard.
wonder.
But
That's what I
the,
got.
the question I had about that and online play in general compared to in person play is to what degree is cheating going on, and what, if any, methods are there to uh, I don't know, verify people's play? I mean, obviously in person, you can see, someone doesn't have a dictionary in front of them or a phone in front of them or something like that. But what do you do when you're playing someone online?
Yeah, online is you basically can never really know if you're playing your friends. It's more of a trust thing there, and
Sure.
as a streamer, like yeah, most people, there's this mutual trust. Like I play the same people over and over again. But honestly, the thing about Scrabble that's so great, I mean, there's many things, but one of the things is that if you're good enough at Scrabble, it doesn't really matter if your opponent is cheating, you can still beat them.
Okay.
So yeah, it's pretty cool that way. But yeah, cheating definitely happens. The website that I play on mostly, woogles.io, Woogles, they have anti-cheating technology. They're
Oh,
not
cool.
revealing what the algorithm is, so that people don't like circumvent it. But yeah, if you get caught, if you're too accurate on like using all of your letters, and then your in between plays are terrible, for example, you're going to get bopped off the website for sure.
And
I see.
a good enough player should be able to optimize their board pretty well without, as you said, they could beat someone who's cheating who may use a computer optimization but not necessarily have the chess like nuance of the game.
Yeah, exactly, and yeah, it's always it's a challenge. I mean, it's fun to play all levels, but I mean most levels.
So how much does that strategy come into play? Because I guess for me, I typically am trying to get the most points on the board as I can. But when I see pros play, it doesn't seem like that's always the strategy. They're more focused on bingos, focused on the sort of the big picture of the game. Is it a mix, or do you have to know sort of when to put your tiles down and when to be searching for the elusive
No one to
bingo?
hold them and no one to
Yeah,
fold them, as they would say.
exactly. Yeah, so I think I would say that if you find the highest scoring play in a position, it's often a very good play.
Hmm.
It's sometimes also the best play, and yeah, I don't know. I don't have numbers on it, but yeah, there's a lot about there's a lot of strategy is like what you leave behind as well. So if you're getting like
Right.
four extra points for your S, you'd better just keep it for later,
And
basically.
do you have
Right.
words that you, in the back of your mind, are always looking for? Just like a word that you enjoy playing that, oh, I got a chance to play, nut bar. I'm gonna keep thinking about it. Do you have any of those?
Yeah, it's we call trying to go for like cool words. We call that like sort of fishing for like a content play online. That's what we call it.
This whole
But it
podcast is a content play, really.
Yeah, exactly. We usually, if I'm close to something, I'll notice. But most of the time, I'm dialed in to like trying to find the best play. But if I notice that I have like a J, a K, and a U and an M, I'm like, oh my god, I could play Muzjik maybe. Like so, yeah.
You don't get many
sometimes
chances to do that.
Yeah, so when I'm playing online, of course, like I'll often try to hit those words if I can because they're cool. You're never going to be able to play all the words, even if I play like 10 games a day. I'm never going to play all the words I know. So
and
yeah,
let's go back to you for a second. When did you figure out that you could make money doing this? Like, when does someone go, a good amateur, like Jamie and I are drinking games playing, we usually score in the 400s, which we understand is pretty decent. But when can you go from that? Like, when did you realize, oh, I'm one of the best there is?
if you're scoring in the 400s, man, like you should, I don't know. It depends.
We should be in Vegas with you.
Like 400s is really good. But yeah, it was probably in 2011 that I really started taking the game seriously. There was a player at the Montreal Scrabble Club who took me under his wing and was like, yeah, you seem to want to get better. Like, I'm pretty good. I can teach you what I know. And yeah, that was about when I started really taking it seriously. It's been a little over 10 years.
And we should mention you're the second, you're a repeat champion from the Montreal Scrabble Club. Last year's winner was Michael Fagan, who was from the club as well.
Also Jewish.
Oh yeah,
I assumed. But what's going on? Is it just, are you guys just the best and you're playing each other and you're learning from the best up in Montreal? Is there something in the water? Is it the bilingualism and all the, the just exposure to the double the amount of words that is causing Montrealers to play the best tiles?
I don't think it's any of those things. I think it's really just random.
Just luck of the draw.
The one thing that I will say is that like Montreal does have a heritage of like past world champions and national champions. So there are 3 players that played like exhaustively at the Montreal Scrabble Club that won world championships back in the day. But since then, there hasn't been like that much action at the top. But
right,
yeah, I don't know.
So you guys are bringing cool. the Scrabble ashes back up to the Belle Provence.
I think the Montreal Scrabble Club compared to the Toronto Scrabble Club, it's night and day. I think the Toronto Scrabble Club is way too serious.
Really?
Yeah, it's way too serious, and it actually doesn't like. You want to be serious in a tournament,
right?
At club, you want to talk about what's going on in the news. Like the club director Bernard Gottlieb will just
he also sounds
randomly
Jewish.
Start talking about. He'll just randomly start talking about what's stuff in the news and like. He sort of does like a little one-liner about stuff like just midway through everyone's games. So I think that sort of camaraderie and like chillness probably does contribute to.
Well, that's I think that something that makes
success.
Scrabble so fascinating to me from a at least from like a casual play perspective, and seeing as it professionally, it's such a type of thinking that is enjoyable to do, but one you don't get to do so often in your everyday life. So it's relaxing in that way. So I think it should be relaxing, especially because it's a game. Like, I am afraid to think about what like professional Monopoly tournaments are about, because that can get like too real in my life, like, negotiating over property rights and dollars and here and that. But I find Scrabble very wholesome in that it is more of a brain exercise than a personality one.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of personality that goes into the way you play, but yeah, I mostly agree with that. I also think that there's a really nice balance of skill versus luck in Scrabble. Like Monopoly is too much luck, poker is a ton of luck, chess there's not enough luck for me. So there's sort of like, you could beat me, Gabe.
Yeah,
you could beat me in a game of Scrabble, and that would be awesome for you and for me. Like, I'm humble enough. It's like, great, good job. But I could also just be like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
Like, but it's I think that's part of it. That's really nice, and I really hope Scrabble does like continue to grow. I think things are pointing somewhat in that direction. But I think the game needs a lot more exposure. People need to understand like what's so great about it. It's not just a kitchen table game. And making money, you asked, like I never expected to make money playing Scrabble. Like it's not a good idea to expect to make money playing Scrabble. If I play in any random tournament and I win, it's basically just paying for the trip.
Yeah, that's great.
Right.
So it's really right now it's hobby, and I want to get it to profession, but there's a lot that needs to happen.
Do you
for that?
So I say this, this is an auditory medium, but I want to tell our listeners that behind Josh, sort of over his left shoulder, there appears to be some sort of custom, beautiful looking Scrabble board on the wall behind him, as some sort of wall art, or maybe that's where he hangs his special board so it is viewed throughout his home. But I want to ask two other questions. I'm sure our audience are listening. One, if you were, now that you've won this tournament, could you like call up Hasbro and be like, I'd like 10 sets to give out at the local orphanage, please? Or does that not, are you recognized by the official world of Scrabble, or is it just more of a player's society?
It's probably more the latter. I could still probably use my privilege
like do you have to buy your own Scrabble board, or do you like to get custom ones? Like, do you have your own?
Definitely have to buy. Definitely have to buy them. But like, maybe as a national champion, I could go to like Bryant Park in New York City and do like a simultaneous exhibition. That's sort of an idea that I've had for a while.
Sure, that's a great idea.
Yeah, teaching kids is just a great way to try and like get more people into the game as well. And Hasbro definitely recognizes that aspect of Scrabble, but the competitive side of it, in all of its glory, is very much a grassroots player-based thing. All of the tools that we use, all of the equipment we use, pretty much everything is just somebody's hard work and sweat that went into it, and doesn't receive much support at all from our corporate overlords.
So, Josh, just wanted to ask you something before we wrap up. There's been a lot of talk recently. I mean, obviously, the Barbie movie has been incredibly successful and has been a toy adaptation. There's been a lot of talk about other, I guess, Mattel properties. I know Scrabble is Hasbro, but it's within that similar family, I think.
Scrabble is Mattel in the rest of the world other than North America, actually. Yeah. So that's another issue altogether.
The question I had was if there was going to be, and I guess at some point there will be, a Scrabble movie. What is something that you would want it to
Who's going to play the letter E
as a theme?
I know who would play the letter E, by the way. I have a friend who tattooed the Scrabble letter E on his arm.
Wow.
So that would be him, for sure.
Any idea for a Scrabble movie, or thoughts on what will eventually happen as it gets, honestly, adapted at some point?
There are so many characters in Scrabble that I think documentaries would be the way to go for like the tournament scene to be seen.
Okay.
But for a movie, or maybe for like a Queen's Gambit type thing, I think there's a lot of material there. What was your question?
just what should go on in the Scrabble movie. But I think a documentary is a good way to answer that, and I think that would be a really fascinating thing to see. So, Josh, I want to say thanks a lot for joining us, and we wish you continued success. We'll make sure to have your links to your Twitch and any other content up on the show notes. But thanks again for joining us, and good luck in your future Scrabbling endeavors.
Hey, thanks a lot, James. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, thanks again to Josh for joining us, and we wish him good luck, with continuing his professional Scrabble ambitions. It's tough because it's one of the it's in a tier of sports where I think it's hard to make a living on, per se.
But you should.
Money. But I think watching guys play Scrabble is very cool. Chess has had such a come up the last few years, and I understand chess, but it doesn't appeal to me in the same way. And
Scrabble,
I agree
I think, is a lot more approachable for me, at least.
I agree with what he said, that it has a great mix of skill and like random number generation that it's like that is sort of like a sweet spot, you know, in the same way that poker is like, you know, oh, if you play enough hands, you will be dealt statistically, you know, the same hands as everybody else. You get to, you know, but what you get in the certain spots, like the odds, the randomness of it is part of the fun. And same thing with Scrabble. Like there's a certain amount of letters left in the bag. You know, you get a certain amount of them, and it's cool to see that.
It's right. You know, I feel that way about backgammon. I feel like it's the right amount of luck and skill, even though there's a lot of, you know, sort of prescribed playing to do, but it's about taking advantage of the luck when it happens. Cribbage being another one that like a lot of games try and find that balance between luck and skill. I think that's a very good analysis of exactly how the game is played. But we'll have to, you know, he did mention that I could beat him. Theoretically speaking,
on a good day,
if that was to ever happen, we are gonna let you all know on the Menschwarmers podcast that I have. Well, I'll tell you how badly I lose the first time, and then if I ever beat him the second or third time.
Yeah, and we should say, you know, aspiring word nerds like us, you know, check Josh's streams out, the games that he posts online. It's very cool to see how these pros operate, and I think it you know, it's similar to poker, that it's like you are playing the same game as them. You know, it's not like watching an NBA game and it's like, well, I should also try to dunk. You know, that's just not going to happen these days, at least. But you know, you can see the words that they play, the way they approach the game, and it can give you some insight as well. So thanks again to him for joining us. And as always, you can find us, like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get it, except Stitcher, which no longer exists. But
that's right. Stitcher is done, so we can no longer identify Stitcher. I am going to take his advice. I'm going to take Josh's advice right now and start an account on woogles.io, which is his go-to Scrabble platform, and I'll start playing. You can find me. I'll probably create my account as Menschwarmers, and you'll know you're playing me or Jamie. If you ever play against the Menschwarmers on woogles.io.
That's great. We're produced as always by Michael Freeman of the Canadian Jewish News. You can find all our stories and podcasts at Canadian Jewish News website, thecjn.ca, and you find us on X/Twitter, where we're zeeting up a storm at Menschwarmers, where we continue to post some news about juicy sports and whatnot in our podcast. Thanks for listening, and send this off to all of your Scrabble playing aunts and uncles who will be interested in the nice Jewish Montreal boy who won the championship. See ya.